Hey everyone, I'm Harper. I'm pretty sure you'll find this story hard to believe. If I heard it, I probably wouldn't believe it either. But I know that it's true because it happened to me. My mom had a difficult time when she was pregnant with me. She had to stay in bed for 7 months because of the risk of miscarriage. As a result, she refused to have another baby even though my dad wanted to. After I was born, they both used all their time and energy taking care of me. They organized their life around me. I'm not complaining about it because I had a great childhood and adolescence, but I wish they had some other interests too. 2.5 years ago, I moved to another city to go to university. After I left, there was a huge hole in my parents' lives. For 18 years, I was the center of their universe. They had no idea what to do with themselves after I left home. First, they got a cat, then a dog, then a parrot. My mom started taking art lessons. My dad started playing golf again. But none of it was enough. One day, I was on the phone with my mom. As usual, she was crying about how much she missed me, and I was trying to console her. All of a sudden, I had a great idea. Mom, what about adopting a child? If you're really missing taking care of a kid, maybe you could adopt one. This time, it could be a boy. You already raised a girl. It would be a new experience. The first thing she said was, "Sweetie, I'm too old to be taking care of a baby now." I wish I had stopped there, but I didn't. Well, it could be an older child, maybe like 9 or 10 years old. You'd provide a home for a child that needs one, and you'll also have someone to take care of, which you clearly miss. She said, "Maybe it's not such a bad idea. Let me talk to your dad," and hung up. She called back half an hour later. She sounded very happy. "Your dad is very excited. We decided we're going to adopt a 10-year-old child just like you said. We'll start looking into it tomorrow." I was so happy for her when I heard the news. I didn't know then that something terrible was going to happen to my family because of me. Overnight, their entire focus changed. They contacted the necessary governmental agencies right away and dealt with the bureaucratic stuff. They went around to foster homes. They talked with officials who deal with adoptions. Now, whenever my mom called me, this is all we talked about. Finally, they reached the most exciting part. They were going to start meeting children that fit their criteria and then choose one to adopt. One day, I was sitting on a bench on campus, relaxing in the sun. I got a text from my mom. I opened it and saw a photo of a cute but shy boy smiling at me. Below the photo, it said, "Hi, I'm your new brother, Beckett. Nice to meet you." I called her immediately. She was so happy. She said that when they first saw Beckett, they knew he was the one they were looking for. He was so mature for his age. They didn't want to miss their chance with such a great kid, so they started the adoption process right away. My dad was so cheerful now that he had a son. "He's a perfect fit for our family. We'll give him all our love," he said, and I teared up. I got so emotional because I'm very close to my parents, and I had missed seeing them so happy. I met Beckett via FaceTime. He really did seem like a good kid. I was going to visit them after I finished my exams. I wanted to bring a gift for Beckett. I asked him a bunch of questions to find out what he liked, but he wasn't very talkative. I felt like I was making him uncomfortable. Maybe he didn't like talking about himself. So I ended up just buying a game that I thought any kid would like. I met him a month later. But I was disappointed after spending some time with him. He was so arrogant, which is something I really hate. What my parents saw as mature behavior felt so irritating to me. I thought maybe he'll grow out of it to make myself feel better. Next morning, something weird happened. I was staying in the guest room because my parents had given my room to Beckett. This room had its own bathroom. I took a shower in the morning, then I was going to brush my teeth, but realized I left my toothbrush in my bag. I opened the bathroom door and I saw Beckett standing right there. Thankfully, I was wearing a bathrobe. He got so nervous and stammered, trying to say something. What was he doing in my room in front of my bathroom door? I was about to ask him, but he ran away before I could say anything. I didn't say anything to my parents because I didn't want to upset them, but I was suspicious. After breakfast, my mom and I were sitting in the garden. "Does Beckett have a family?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "He doesn't have anyone. In fact, he was homeless. 2 months ago, the police found him and placed him in a foster home. The officials didn't know anything about his past. We didn't ask so as not to upset him. I was surprised. Mom, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean they don't know anything? What if he is a runaway and he's lying about not having parents? Meanwhile, my dad was planting new flowers in the garden and Beckett was helping him. My mom said, "Harper, look at how innocent he is. You think he'd lie? Who knows what he's been through? All we need to do now is try to heal his emotional wounds." I kept watching Beckett over the next few days. Something about him didn't feel right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. On the other hand, my parents were so happy, so I thought it was best to keep my thoughts to myself. Anyway, what could I say? I just had a bad feeling about him, that's all. I was still bothered by the whole thing after I went back to school. Finally, I decided to call the adoption agency. There was no point in lying. I explained the situation to the woman on the phone and asked her to keep this conversation between us. She understood where I was coming from. It's true, we don't know anything about Beckett's past. But there are so many kids here like him whose past we know nothing about. The kids who grow up in the streets are especially unlucky in that sense. Some of them can't express themselves, and some think that what they've experienced is normal and is not worth talking about. I felt ashamed when I hung up the phone. I looked at Beckett's photo. He did look innocent. My mom was right. All we could do now was to try to help him heal his wounds. I didn't want to keep feeling guilty, so I thought I would talk to him. I called my mom and asked for him. "You loved him too, right?" she said, sounding so happy. I had a hard time keeping the conversation going since I wasn't used to talking to a 10-year-old. I said stuff like, "How are you? How is school?" He didn't say much, so after 30 seconds, I ran out of things to ask. I had a friend in high school whose name was Beckett. He had once told me what his name meant. I remembered that. "Do you know what your name means?" "It has a really beautiful meaning," I said. Right away, he said, "Of course I know it. It means warrior." I laughed. "Don't be so sure. It doesn't mean warrior. It means stream," I said. "No," he insisted. "Earl means warrior." I was shocked. "Earl? Who is Earl?" I asked. He didn't reply. He stuttered like that day when I found him in front of my bathroom. I was right. He was hiding something from us. Even his name was fake. I didn't say anything about it then. I just said, "I have to go to class. We'll talk later," and hung up the phone. I was shaking from anger. I thought his real name is Earl. Why is he hiding it? What could such a young child possibly be hiding? I decided to do some research and find out who he really was. I thought I'd start with Google, but what could I search for? All I knew was that his real name was Earl. I typed in Earl and clicked search. Thousands of results came up. I was randomly clicking on things as I thought about what I could do. I ended up in Google Images. Suddenly, I had a great idea. I could upload his photo to Google Images and search for similar ones. I transferred his photo to my computer. Then I uploaded it to Google Images and clicked search. The results were not what I was hoping for. There were a bunch of random images. I started going through them anyway. I was almost at the end of the page. Then I saw something that caught my eye. Man who looks like a child steals diamond ring by swallowing it. I clicked on it right away. It was a news site. A woman went to a jewelry store with her child. As she was trying to distract the jeweler, the little kid took a ring and swallowed it. The jeweler saw it and pressed a panic button, which notified the police. So the police came and arrested the woman and the kid as they were leaving. The part that interested me came after this. When the police interviewed the kid, they found out he was actually a 29-year-old man. Apparently, he had a condition caused by a growth hormone deficiency. He stopped growing at 10 years old. These people are technically dwarfs, but they have normal body proportions. The article included the man's mugshot. Yes, this was Beckett, or rather, Earl. The news was from 3 years ago, which meant that a 32-year-old man was at my parents' house. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my phone in panic. I had to call my dad and warn him. Then I thought, well, what is he going to do? Is he going to drag him to the police? He's not a boy, but a 32-year-old criminal. He could do anything. So instead of calling my dad, I called the police. That was probably the longest day of my life. I told the police what happened. They went to our house and were able to arrest the man without incident. I visited my parents that evening. Thankfully, everyone was safe. My parents were trying to get over their shock. This Earl guy was already in jail. We don't know what he was planning to do. Either he was going to live there as long as he could by pretending to be a boy, or he was going to steal something and then run away. We'll probably find out the reason during his trial. We don't think that this was his first time pretending to be an orphan. The trial should also reveal whether he had other victims.
Hi everyone, I'm Jillian. One day in music class, our teacher, Miss Atkins, said, "Folks, we decided to start a band here at school. We have many students who play an instrument, and most are good enough to perform. The only thing we're missing is a singer." Everyone looked at each other. When Miss Atkins said, "Come on, guys, I'm sure some of you can sing. We can't have a band without a singer." I reluctantly raised my hand. I sang a song which everyone loved. And that's how I became the singer of the school band to a round of applause. It was Miss Atkins' first year at the school. We all really liked her from day one. Even though she always wears her sunglasses in class, she's definitely not a snob. She's always friendly to us. She told us she has a problem with her eyes, and light makes her extremely uncomfortable. That's why she has to wear sunglasses all the time. Since her sunglasses make her look even cooler, I'm sure most of the guys in our class are in love with her. That night, I told my mom about what happened at school. Unfortunately, she said, "Honey, that's wonderful news, but your teacher will definitely want you to go to rehearsals. You don't have the time." My mom was right. I didn't think of that. My dad passed away 2 years ago. After that, we've had a rough time financially. My dad had taken out a large mortgage from the bank. My mom had to start working immediately. After making the monthly mortgage payment, we don't have much money left. So I got a job working at a grocery store after school. If we can't pay back the loan, the bank will foreclose on our house. That's why my mom and I both have to work. The following day, I told my teacher about all this. "Jillian, you're our singer. I also know that you really want to do this. I'll talk to your bandmates, and we can rehearse whenever is good for you. Have your mother stop by the school. I'll talk to her and reassure her that it's going to be okay." My mom came to the school a few days later. I took her to Miss Atkins' office. When she met her, my mom said, "You look so familiar. I feel like I definitely know you, but I can't figure out from where." Miss Atkins got really nervous. "I don't think so. I just moved to this city. And before that, I lived abroad for a long time," she said. My mom wanted to try to figure it out, but Miss Atkins clearly didn't want to talk about it. Up until then, Miss Atkins had been very warm, but suddenly she changed. She seemed to want to quickly get rid of my mom. In fact, within a few minutes, she got up to leave saying, "I have class." My mom was totally shocked by her behavior. Why did she panic like that when I told her she looked familiar to me? "I'm sure she's hiding something. It's obvious from the way she's wearing sunglasses inside," she said. I told her there was something wrong with her eyes, but she wasn't buying it. That night when I came home from work, I was so tired. I went to bed really early. In the middle of the night, my mom woke me up. She said, "Jillian, I figured out how I know your teacher." I said, "Mom, couldn't you wait till the morning?" And she said, "I'm going to give you a name. I want you to look it up online," she replied. My mom is really bad with technology. She can't even use a smartphone. I turned on my laptop and opened Google. She told me the name of a very famous old singer whom I sometimes listen to. "Mom, what does this man have to do with Miss Atkins?" I asked her, but she did not reply. Because he is super famous, Google has thousands of results. My mom said, "Show me a picture of him." I went to Google Images and clicked on an image. "Look at that! His head is huge, but the ears are tiny. Just like your teacher," she said. I burst out laughing. "Mom, I can't believe you. Let's say they both have tiny ears." "What's wrong with that?" I asked. My mom started explaining as if she were a detective. About 20 years ago, there was a huge scandal involving this singer. He slept with a woman even though he was married. They never saw each other again. One day, the woman showed up at his house with a 5-year-old girl and told him, "This is your daughter." The man accused her of lying and told her to get out. On TV shows, they always compared the ears of the singer and the little girl and said, "You don't see ears this small very often. She's definitely his daughter." I was so sleepy. "Mom, that's really interesting, but even if Miss Atkins is his daughter, that's none of our business." I'm going back to bed, but she said, "No, this is our business. We can pay off our whole mortgage thanks to this." Then she went on to explain further. The girl's mother sued the man. The DNA test proved that he was her father. The guy still did not accept her. He never wanted to see her. But in the years that followed, a lot of bad things happened to him. His wife even died in a car accident. Since he was religious, he thought, God must be punishing me. He wanted to find his daughter and apologize to her. He looked for her but couldn't find neither her nor her mother. He said, I'll give a big reward to anyone who can tell me where they are. I'm sure that's on the internet as well. I Googled the guy's name again, this time adding the word reward. There really were many news stories. He promised $1 million to anyone who helped him find his daughter. But recently, since he was losing all hope, he raised it to $10 million. When my mom heard the amount, she screamed. When she calmed down, she said, Jillian, there's another very important thing. It was reported on the news that the little girl had a rare genetic feature. Her eyes were different colors. One was blue and the other brown. Now do you understand why Miss Atkins is always wearing sunglasses? She's hiding her eyes to avoid being recognized. My mom's detective instincts worked, and finally, she convinced me too. It sounded like Miss Atkins could really be the singer's missing daughter. But I still didn't want to make things difficult for her. Mom, please, if she wants to run away from her dad, let's let her be. I'm sure she's got her reasons for it, I said. My mom didn't want to listen to me. Jillian, come on. I'd do anything for $10 million. But I want to be sure it's really her before I get in touch with her father. I need to see that she really has different colored eyes. After that, we'll be rich. I asked, how do you plan to do it? And she said, simple, I'm coming to school tomorrow to look at her eyes. Then my mom went to her room. I started to cry. No matter how much I protested, she was clearly going to go ahead with this. All this was definitely going to hurt my teacher. I was so worried. The next day at school, I was walking around really confused. Then I got a text from my mom. She was about to arrive at the school. A few minutes later, she was there. As we were going to Miss Atkins' office, my legs were shaking from anxiety. When Miss Atkins saw us, she smiled. What a nice surprise. Welcome back, she said. Unlike me, my mom was really calm. Miss Atkins, after our meeting, I thought this over. Jillian loves singing. It's a great opportunity for her to be the singer of the school band. I'm here to thank you for that, she said. Of course, she was lying. Just as Miss Atkins was saying, I'm so glad to hear that, my mom suddenly grabbed her sunglasses and pulled them off. My teacher was looking at my mom in shock. My mom's face gave away her huge disappointment because both of Miss Atkins' eyes were brown. If she really were the singer's daughter, one of her eyes would be blue and the other one brown. My mom was embarrassed. She didn't know what to say. I just wanted to see your eyes, she said, and gave back the sunglasses. Miss Atkins put them back on. I would have shown them to you if you'd have asked, she said. What my mom did was obviously very weird. At that moment, neither of us knew what to say or how to react. My mom just said, I'm so sorry, and quickly left the room. After my mom left, Miss Atkins began to laugh like crazy. Laughter is contagious, so I started laughing too. For a while, we just laughed. She kept saying, I just wanted to see your eyes, imitating my mom and continuing to laugh. When we calmed down, she said, it's going to take a while for your mom to overcome this shock. Actually, I was really surprised too because I believed my mom and I really thought you had different colored eyes, I replied. Miss Atkins smiled and took off her sunglasses. Then she took a small mirror that was lying on her table and turned it to face her. Looking in the mirror, she removed a contact lens from one of her eyes. When she turned to me, I screamed, "No way!" Because, indeed, one of her eyes was blue and the other one brown. These are my real eyes. The medical term for it is heterochromia. It's a very rare condition. I love my differently colored eyes. But unfortunately, I have to wear these black sunglasses so that I don't get recognized, she said. Suddenly, she got emotional. A tear fell onto her cheek. She said to me, Jillian, thank you for calling me last night and telling me about what your mother wanted to do. If I hadn't known about it, she would have definitely caught me today. I was so happy that I'd called up Miss Atkins and told her about everything after my mom went to sleep. I did it because I knew that I wouldn't be able to stop my mom. Moreover, I liked hearing that my teacher found a new way to hide her eye color as a result of this. Normally, I don't wear contact lenses. I could actually wear a colored lens instead of sunglasses. I'd never thought about it, really. After talking to you and finding out about what happened, I thought long and hard about what I should do. At first, I thought about running away. I could disappear again like I've been doing for years. But then I had this contact lens idea. In the morning, I went and bought a couple of brown lenses and put one of them on my blue eye. When your mom saw both of my eyes were the same color, she'd realize she was wrong and leave me alone. And it all went just as I planned. There was something else I was dying to know. Why are you running away from your father? He loves you so much he's willing to give away $10 million, I said, and my teacher's eyes welled up. I don't think he loves me at all. I think he's just afraid that God is punishing him and only wants to find me to atone for his sins. You get used to everything. I'm used to not having a father. I don't need him anymore. After school, I went to work like I always do. That evening, when I came back home, my mom was doing the dishes. Without saying a word, she gave me a hug. She was crying. I knew then that she regretted what she did to Miss Atkins. I gave her a kiss on the cheek. I said, "You're a good person. I love you. And I know that you love me too. And this makes me so happy."
Hi, everyone. Like everyone else, I love my mom. But after what I've learned about her, I started seeing her in a different light. My mom should have been honest with us. I'll tell you the whole story from the beginning. Let's see if you think I'm right. We'd always been a happy family. For many years, my mom owned and managed a beauty salon. She loved her job so much. My dad is a wedding photographer. His job is to capture newlyweds during their most romantic moments. I love taking pictures too. The photos I used to post on my Instagram would get tons of likes. But I had to delete my account because of my mom. I hadn't met my mom's parents until I was 17 years old. When I'd ask her about them, she'd tell me that she didn't want to see them because she had serious issues with her family. I was really curious about them, but my mom absolutely refused to talk about them. One day, after I kept pushing, she got angry. "I don't even know if they're alive or dead, and I don't really care. Stop asking me about them," she yelled. One morning, a few months after this talk, our doorbell rang. It was an elderly couple. The man looked like a college professor in his suit and bow tie. The woman looked very elegant, too. She was carrying a bouquet of flowers. They looked really cute. They said they were looking for my mom and asked, "Does she live here?" When I said yes, they said, "Are you her daughter?" I nodded. "Would you like to see my mother?" "I can call her if you like. Who should I say is here?" I asked. The old lady told me their names. Then she asked me what my name was. And then she said, "I'm your grandmother, and this is your grandfather. We are so happy to meet you." I was so surprised I screamed, but I still couldn't invite them in. I thought I should call my mom. My mom was getting ready to leave for the beauty salon. I told her, "There's an older couple at the door. They're saying they are my grandparents." My mom's face turned pale. "Ella, what did you just say?" she said. My mom wasn't happy to see our guests at all. I thought she wasn't even going to invite them in, but thankfully she did. I was trying to figure out what was happening. But my mom told me, "Ella, do you mind going to your room? We need to speak in private." I left, even though I didn't want to. An hour passed. I was dying to know what was happening. Finally, I came out of my room. Nobody was around. Both my mom and our unannounced guests were gone. I called my mom right away. She said she was at the salon. "So were they your parents?" I asked. "I'm going to tell you the truth. Yes, it was them. But they shouldn't have come. And they won't be coming again," she said. Obviously, something terrible had happened a long time ago. Even though so much time had passed, she still couldn't forgive them. Finally, I decided to talk to my dad. I went to his photo studio. I told him what happened. He said my mom had never talked to him about this issue either. "I'm sure she has her reasons. I'd say let's leave her alone," he said. If everything stayed the same after that day, I would have done as my dad said. But many strange things started happening. Soon after this incident, my mom sold her salon. Before, she would tell everyone how good the business was every chance she got. The salon had a loyal clientele. But she put an ad up in a local paper and sold it to the first person who answered. After that, we moved to a different house. It was in a different neighborhood, far from where we used to live. I couldn't make sense of any of this. Everything had changed after that old couple showed up at our door. One morning, something happened that was the last straw. My mom wanted me to delete my TikTok and Instagram accounts. I didn't care about TikTok, but taking photos was my favorite hobby, and I didn't want to delete my Instagram where I was putting up all my images. I asked my mom what was happening. Please just do as I say and don't ask questions. I'll tell you everything when the time comes. I was bored of my mom acting all weird, but there was nothing I could do. I had to delete my accounts. Around this time, I realized my mom never used social media. She wasn't on Facebook or Instagram. Even her beauty salon didn't have a website. Something else occurred to me. When she wanted to sell the salon, my mom had advertised in the local paper and not online. She's actually pretty tech-savvy. But from what I could tell, she didn't want to put any information about herself online. There had to be a reason for that. Because I was going crazy at this point, I decided to investigate. The first thing that came to mind as I started looking into my mom's past was to Google her. But when I did, I only got the people who had the same name as her. I spent hours clicking on them one by one. They were all different people. Not being able to find anything online about Mom made me even more curious. She had obviously been very careful for years. I now knew that my mom was definitely hiding something. I didn't know this back then, but I would do anything to find out. I decided to work like a detective. Whatever my mom was hiding, I knew that it was connected to my grandparents. If I could somehow reach them, they could talk to me. What did I know about them? Their first names, but what were their last names? Unfortunately, I didn't know that. I started Googling their names. Naturally, there were thousands of results. I clicked through the pages. After a while, I figured there was no way I'd find them this way. Just then, I thought of searching for both of their names together. Again, I got a ton of results. I started clicking on the links. One of the pages was a news article accompanied by a group photo. Just as I was about to close the page, I noticed my grandfather standing on the very left. Next to him was my grandmother. The news story was talking about a charity helping children with leukemia. It mentioned that the co-founders of the charity were my grandparents. For years, they had been raising money for treatment of children with leukemia. I had finally found what I was looking for. I could find out what my mom's secret was by reaching out to them. I now knew my grandparents' full names, and I even knew the name of their charity. I could tell they were both good people just by their faces. And the story I read proved my instinct was correct. Actually, there was something else that I could do. Now I knew what my mother's maiden name was. I could try running her name through Google one more time. I typed my mom's maiden name into Google and hit the search button. The first result said, "Most Wanted Fugitives." I got excited and clicked on it. It was a police website. There were photos of many people. If you know or have seen any of these people, don't say anything to them or to anyone else for your own safety. Call the police right away, it said. Could my mom be a criminal wanted by the police? I didn't think so, but still I started scrolling down the page and looking around. As I was looking through the photos, I stopped. The woman in one photo looked so much like my mom, but she was very young. She had short red hair. My mom wears her hair long and keeps its natural color, brown. And most importantly, the woman in the photo had brown eyes. My mom's eyes are blue. I looked at the photo even more carefully. If this woman wasn't my mom, she had to be my mom's sister, because she looked exactly like my mom. I realized that I could click on the photo. When I did, I was taken to a page that showed what the person's crime was. She was wanted for theft. As I read the rest of the page, I screamed, "No way!" She was accused of stealing a lot of money from a charity. The charity that was mentioned here was the same one that my grandparents founded for kids with leukemia. This couldn't be a coincidence. I had an idea. My mom was at the grocery store. I went to the kitchen. The trash from the previous day was still there. I put on some gloves and started going through the trash bag. Yes, it was disgusting, but it would be totally worth it if I could find what I was looking for. And I did. Packaging from contact lenses. My mom's eyes were not blue, but brown. She used blue contact lenses to hide them. My mom had stolen my grandparents' charity money and disappeared. The police were still looking for her. I regretted having learned about this. I wish I hadn't done so much research. After what I learned, I would start looking at my mom differently. We were a very happy family. We didn't need something like this to come between us. When my mom came back from the store, I went to her. I told her I wanted to talk to her about something important and told her about what I had found out. She started sobbing. She wasn't able to speak for some time. Then she told me her story. When I lived with your grandparents, I was working at a beauty salon. I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't have any money. I was young and I didn't know anything. My parents had organized a big fundraising event one night. They were going to put all the donated money in the bank the next morning. I took the money and ran away to open my own beauty salon. When I started making my own money, I was going to donate twice the amount I took back to the charity. I thought your grandparents wouldn't report me to the police. But they weren't able to explain to the families of the sick kids why the money had disappeared. That's why they had to go to the police. I was really mad at them. I never got in touch with them again. I married your dad and started a new life. I changed the way I looked because I knew the police were after me, and I've been using contacts since then. An older lady who recently moved into the building had heard the story, and she recognized me. She called your grandparents and told them where I lived. They wanted to see me when they found out. But unfortunately, I did not treat them well because I was still so ashamed. Ella, I'm not a bad person. I really regret what I've done. I sold the beauty salon and donated all the money to your grandparents' charity. I started crying as my mom was telling me all this. This was her biggest secret. She was so ashamed of it. Unfortunately, now I knew about this secret too. Her shame had naturally deepened. A month later, my grandparents came back again. They had submitted proof of my mom's donation to the charity to the court. The judge said there had to be a final hearing, and my mom would most probably get off with just a small fine. Now we're waiting for that hearing. I went to visit my grandparents last week. I told them I wanted to work with them at the charity. They were so happy. Soon there will be a new fundraising event. I'm really excited to be helping them.